Okay, so I just spent an hour and a half on these critiques, and I'm gonna have to start where it left off, which I think was here with yours, Michael. Okay, so as I was saying, um, I think I was talking about, so just, so it looks like you've got these look like they might be part of, I don't know if you messed them in or what, but think about what your message is, and are you trying to, what is that you're trying to say? So make a choice. You're trying to say make a choice. But I'm not entirely sure what these have to do with that. They kind of just look, it almost looks like it's just kind of dirty. So just make sure that the images that you're choosing are helping with your message. The other thing is I'd choose a different font and make it a little bit more, even though you only have 3 words, you can still use contrast to your advantage. And don't have a glow, because that kind of makes it look a bit more like scrapbooky and just kind of amateur. I do like the cropped version better, FYI. Okay, so Laura. So when I look at yours, there's a lot of, it's really chaotic. There's a lot of things happening and fighting for my attention, because we've got a lot of text. It's all the same size. It's kind of just randomly placed. There's no alignment. There's a lot of different types of, we've got different weights and different things that are just happening, and it's a little overwhelming. So I would make sure you need to just, the biggest thing that you should work on is simplifying. And you can, instead of, and there's also drop shadows on everything, and so I'd get rid of the drop shadows, have only 2 fonts, and really only emphasize certain words, especially because this is a long quote. So make sure you also source who said it. And the other thing is there's a lot of, so I like the images that you've chosen for your montage. Just go in and fix some of these, the masking, because I can kind of tell the edges there. There's also this weird line that's kind of distracting. So just work a little bit more with that, and especially the typography. Look at, some of these examples of, notice how they're really good with the contrast of the type. And there's also a lot of proximity issues as well. So just make sure to review those design principles and apply them with your typography as well. Chris, okay, so I love your montage. Super. All right, Hannah, let's look. Okay, so one thing, so I like your montage, but I would remember the rule of thirds, and I would place your person over here on this rule of thirds line, so that there's not all this extra space, and it's not too crammed over here. I like the contrast that you're using. I'd even go bigger, like make birth, sleep, and forgetting a little bit. Set it a little bit lower, like behind, under, like after the quote, because like right now when I look at it, I see Wadsworth first, and then I read the quote, and so it's a little confusing. So just proximity and placement of the person who said it. All right, Gentry. So I love, great job with your text. Very nice with the with contrast. The biggest thing is I would have your fireworks be more in this area, so that, because right now it's all really right like heavy. So I would just utilize this area a little bit more. The other thing is, you know, I'm not entirely sure why you chose apples. Like, I understand fireworks for the lights, but like, just, keep in mind your message and what it is that you're trying to portray, and that central message. And are apples the best thing to help that? And maybe if there is something that I'm missing, then please let me know. But my first reaction was like, okay, well, why are apples text? Just so we know that it's associated with the quote. All right, Natalie. So it's very simple and clean. The only thing is I can't really read the text. It's a little, that blue on the blue is a little hard. I wonder what it would look like black. Even though you've centered, you've done it very nicely, and there's some good contrast here with within your typography. Other thing is just to source, if this is a quote, source where you got the quote from. But nice job on the masking as well. Courtney, so I'd work a little bit more with your masking. Right now it just seems kind of like it doesn't look like you spent that much time on it, like you just kind of got a round brush and just did a hole through the layer mask. Be a little bit more purposeful, and like I like how you have, like, you've done a really good job of lining up the images with like the ocean or the horizon line here, but I would just be a little bit more purposeful in why you have your mask. I like how you have these different fonts for contrast, but work a little bit more with contrast and the placement. The portion who said the quote doesn't need to be the same size, and you don't need the hyphen. And then there's like this awkward space, so the leading is a little inconsistent. So let's work a little bit more with that. But I like the idea, and I think that also down here, if that back bar shows, but this line right here, you can tell from the masking. So just be a little bit more specific with your masking. A good job, or a good that are kind of distracting, like these trees. And I think you can find a house that's more simple, so that you just have the house and the temple as the focus. And that way you'd have a little bit more room for the text. Right now the text is a little crowded and just squished, and there's not a lot of alignment happening. So make sure that you're using alignment. Don't be afraid to use size to your advantage when it comes to contrast. But I think, excuse me, and like the contrast. I wonder what it would look like if you were to make companion, cherish, and never to even be a different color to help even more make it more contrasting. The other thing is there's so this line here, I'm not sure if that's intentional, if you were wanting it to kind of go with the clock in the other image, but you might be on that line. I'm also not sure what these elements down here are, the little triangles, but yeah, just make sure that everything is intentional and that you have these little pixelations for a reason. But I love your typography. Great job on that. Parker. Other. Emphasize these words. So I would just bring it down a little bit and have it more in this area, and that would be good. So great job on that composition. Okay, let let me make sure that I'm recording because I think we're good. I really hope. But it said we were last time and it didn't record, so. Okay, Adam, this is really, really creative. But the text, as Kylie said, that it's kind of, the text gets a little forgotten. It's a little hidden. I would work a little bit more, and instead of having, I'd choose a different font. This font is a little clip-arty in a way, and I have the eye be more focused down in this quadrant, and then you had your text up here, and that would help the flow. And work a little bit more with contrast, so you have beauty maybe that's like, we look at where beauty's like a big word, and then we've got the rest of the quote, like as in the eye of the beholder. But I really love the work a little bit more with the type. Jody, so with yours, the red in like the value on that blue is just really difficult. It's kind of like a little clashing and hurts my eyes. I don't really want to read it. And then also it's a long quote, and so using a decorative font for a long quote is a little too much. I would simplify, just emphasize different words with this font if you want, but we want more space. But I think having it in this area is good, and how you have the step down, which just kind of follows this flow, but just, yeah, giving it more breathing room and then fixing that. Also, make sure that I think that you've used 2 images here, but you've done a good job at the masking, but just make sure that you have at least 2 images. But if you have, then great job, because it looks like one. So, all right, Erin. So one thing, the text just needs a little bit more work, have more contrast, bring it down so it's not so close to the edge. And then this, I would bring this candle and make it more big and dominant. I assume that this is one image and then you have your candle, but if you have this back, and if this is an image as well, no, I think this is all one image. So I would just, the candle just kind of looks randomly placed down here, and make it more a part of the image, and then that way you can have a nice flow happening. Also make sure to quote your source. Mackenzie, so I like what you have here going on, but this area needs a little bit of work. I would make this a lot smaller, have a little bit more, and then this, your text, and then come in here, and it would keep going. You could even have have this part of the quote just span this area, and that would be fine as well. All right, Brooke. So I really like your picture here in the different colors. The biggest thing is your text just needs a little bit more work. It just kind of looks placed here, but how can you give it more personality and use more contrast, like, bold some words or have some different. All right, Laura. So there's no text, but make sure that you add text, and then just as I've said with others, make sure that there's contrast, and so following the design principles within your text. But your masking here is a good job, but just make sure that the text that you choose and everything is sending that message that you want to portray. You might want to, depending on, especially if you put text here, which would be where you should to follow good flow, I'd move the picture of Christ a little bit more to the left so that there's not all this extra space. I'd work a little bit more with the masking. It kind of creates this awkward thing of how they're overlapping. The other thing is, I wonder what it would look like if you were to have a different image of Christ, because right now we have two different almost like stories that are in this. Like you're focusing on the footprints in the sand, then we have Christ like holding the lamb, and I wonder what it would look like with another image that would of Christ that would help interact more with the footprints in the sand rather than just be a up here in the corner like and faded. The other thing, I would choose a different color. So I like how you have good size differences. I choose something that would be a good contrasting font. Okay, so Imran, I really love this. I montage. If you've done an excellent job because it looks like one image. But if not, just make sure that you have at least two images that you're blending together. But I think that you have a really nice setup to readjust this text. I think if you were to position this text in this area, then that would help the flow because this is pointing towards it, and it'll just keep the viewer on the page. But I would work a little bit more on contrast. So have like all never be small and then backwards be big, and that would just really help make it stand out more. Because typography makes or breaks the design. Right now it's kind of just there, and it's not really working with the design. So just work with contrast and then placement. All right, so Kate. So I would work a little bit more with the masking. There seems to be some little eyesores right here. And this color is a little hard to read. I choose a different color. And then maybe make strength bigger and have that be, a focus of, that's what you're focusing on, is strength. I like how you have this nice contrast here with weakness, but make strength even bigger to show some nice visual hierarchy within your design or typography. You might want to, overall, the whole quote make a little bit smaller so you can. But the other thing is also think about of your design rather than just having text and then this image and then it's kind of just floating up here. I think that would help me have it interact a little bit more with the overall design. Excuse me. Andre, okay, so I really like the start here. I like what you've done with these images. Make sure that it's high quality images. I can tell it's pixelated and it's going to definitely print that way. And if you are able to move the person a little to the left, that would help. But if it's part of this image, then you probably can't. But if it's its own image, then I would move it to the left, just so that you don't have a lot of extra space over here. But it still is. You still got a nice. It's not centered, so that's nice. But one thing is with your text, I would choose one or the other. We've got the scripture, and then we have this little phrase. I would stick with one instead of having both because they're both fighting for my attention. And so whichever one that you choose, I would place it right here in this quadrant and then make sure to have some good contrast within. Whether you have this long one, emphasize some words, or if you have this one, how can you use size or different fonts or things that can help to create some contrast. Okay, so Logan, first things is that think about what your message is, what it is that you're trying to portray, and the pictures that you're choosing to give that message. This picture, it seems kind of just like a snapshot. It's not. I think I can understand what you're trying to get at, but like it's a little distracting. Like her eyes are closed, and it kind of takes away the professional feel that it should have. Also, it looks squished. It looks like just resizing. If you're resizing an image, bless me. Oh, excuse me. When you're resizing an image, hold it because even if you hold Shift and do it from the sides, it's going. The other thing is, you've got Christ that's just kind of the sky. This hyphen, and then I would use projects. So is one.